across the state. I'm all excited to visit with new people. I love meeting with people. So a little bit about myself. Brandon Trosclair, Good House, Louisiana. Been married to my wife for nearly 17 years. We have 2 beautiful children. I look right and showing this Elizabeth pictures of my kids on their first day of school and all that stuff before. But I've always been a guy that refuses to sit on the sidelines. America is the best country in the world by far, but we're headed in the wrong direction. And I've always had the mindset that I'm not going to sit on the sidelines and watch my community, my state, my country crumble. So with that being said, I'm a part of the LAGOP, this is the Republican State Central Committee. I'm also elected to our local RPEC. I'm on the board for the Louisiana Family Forum, and I'm also on the board for the Government Relations Committee for the Louisiana Retailers Association. And I'm very active with all of those groups. I'm a business guy, I'm not a politician. Certainly not a politician looking for a job. I have a great job. I own 13 grocery stores across South Louisiana and Mississippi. Have one of the top 50 largest companies in the Baton Rouge metropolitan area and have 400 employees. And when 2 years ago, when Joe Biden came after my business, several of y'all businesses, and a lot of people's jobs across America, I was the guy that stood up to the Biden administration's massive government overreach with the employer vaccine mandate. What that vaccine mandate stated was that me as an employer had to force my employees to take the vaccine. And if they wouldn't take the vaccine, then I had to fire them. And look, I have lots of people that have been with us many years. And my thought was that it wasn't that I was for or against the vaccine. The fact of the matter is, I don't think Joe Biden belonged in my business. And I certainly didn't belong in the medical decisions of my employees. That's between their doctor and their family, not me. So I was the first person to file. I guess I was a little naive. I thought there would be tens of thousands of people that saw it the same way that I did. I was the first of only 6 people across the country that filed suit against the Biden administration. We immediately got a nationwide injunction from the Fifth Circuit. Of course, President Biden appealed that case. We ended up eventually at the United States Supreme Court. We made it there very quick. Went to the Supreme Court. We won that decision 6-3, and it's estimated that we saved over 80 million jobs across America. It was an honor of a lifetime, something I never expected to have to do or to do, but it was an honor of a lifetime to stand up for my business, my employees, and the workers here in the United States of America. So after we finished that, I got involved with election integrity. I had a lot of friends back home in towns involved in the election integrity movement. And I was shocked and appalled and disappointed in what I saw. And so that group, the Louisiana Citizens for Election Integrity, has been working with our state department for almost 4 years now and wanting answers to our problems and getting some direction. All that were making some progress. And ultimately, they were being played by our state department. So our state department runs all over all over the state of Louisiana, saying that according to the Heritage Foundation, we have the 6th best elections in the country. There's nothing to see here. There's nothing to do here. Everything is good. Everything is A-okay. So what I'm going to tell you tonight is I'm going to use the same data sources that my opponents use and that the State Department uses. And I'm going to tell you why we have awful elections here in Louisiana and why I think they're some of the worst elections in the country. All right, fair deal. Everything's going to be accurate. Everything's going to be data sources from what the State Department says. So the first thing they say is the Heritage Foundation's 6th best elections in the country, right? But they're not going to tell you the rest of the story that our overall score on that Heritage Foundation, our score is a 75. That's unacceptable. That's a C. When my kids come home with C's, we don't go out and celebrate at Baskin Robbins or Andy's and get some grocery buster. We go to the bedroom and we start studying and hitting the books. That's the way it should be, right? That's unacceptable. What they're also not going to tell you on that same survey is that we have F in proof of citizenship. An F. We have an F in proof of voter ID. That's unacceptable. We have an F in the accuracy of our voter rolls. An F. So let's talk a little bit about the F and accuracy of our voter rolls. Our Secretary of State can go on their Facebook page right now and look. But they've been saying for years that our voter rolls are 99.9% accurate. Folks, that's not the case. We have, like I said, according to the Heritage Foundation, we have an F in the accuracy of our voter rolls. What that ends up doing, if you follow the law that's on the books right now, we have 704,000, 1 in 5 people in Louisiana are inactive and ineligible to be removed from voter rolls. That's unacceptable. We've been going all over the state saying this. We have people 143 years old still on our voter rolls. That's shameful. That's on the Facebook page too. They openly admit this. 143 years old. That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing. So the legislature called them to the legislature this last session, and they said, hey, they got this guy out there saying all these things about how bad our registration is. What's going on? They finally admitted that there's 189,000, at least 189,000 people that should be removed. So when they finally did it, we felt that was some progress. We called them up and said, hey, you know, y'all making some progress here, let's work together. They told us to lawyer up. They told the process to lawyer up just to clean up our registration rules. Yeah, too much feedback. They told us to lawyer up. How shameful is that when private citizens are wanting to clean up our registration, they tell us to lawyer up? Well, I got a pretty good record when it comes to suing the government. So I took them at their word and I lawyered up. So they immediately made a motion to dismiss our case. We went to court probably 6-7 weeks ago now. And you know what the judge said? We're absolutely not dismissing this case because my own daughter moved to California 20 years ago and she's still on the voter rolls here in Louisiana. So we're moving forward. How shameful is that? I mean, folks, this is terrible. So moving forward, the Louisiana Legislative Audit Report, go on page 5. It's addressed to one of my competitors. It's addressed to all the legislators, but specifically one of my competitors as a Speaker of the House. And what it says on page 5 is Louisiana doesn't audit our elections, nor do we even have the ability to audit our elections. So I asked the question, how can you say that we have anywhere close to the best elections, much less the 6th best elections, when you can't even audit your elections? Folks, this is embarrassing. The only state in the country that you can't audit your elections. How shameful is that? So what we have here in Louisiana is we have faulty, outdated technology voting machines. All right, even the new ones. You had the Haldeman report come out about 2 months ago. It was sealed to Georgia Supreme Court. And what the Haldeman report says is that the new voting machines here in Louisiana, those exact models, can be hacked and manipulated in over 15 different ways. And the clerks in the State Department wouldn't even know about it. That's how easy it is. But yet, they say everything's okay. They say that our election management system is the safest in the world. I've heard that claim, that it's the safest in the world. So we sat down, Louisiana Citizens for Election Day, we sat down with Bob. We said, it's so safe, let us hack into it with permission. So he granted permission. You know how long the safest in the world election management system took us? Less than 3 minutes. Less than 3 minutes. So we got faulty, outdated technology voting machines. We have an insecure election management system. We have dirty voter rolls. You have elections that can't even be audited. I mean, can it get any worse, right? It's terrible. So what my campaign is the only campaign out there that's even acknowledging all these problems. The only campaign out there giving solutions to these problems. I guess you have to acknowledge the problem first in order to give a solution, but they're not acknowledging or giving a solution to these problems. So what are we going to do? We're going to get rid of these outdated technology voting machines, and we're going to use a hand-marked secure paper ballot that's hand-counted by the people. Hand-counted by the people of Louisiana. We outsourced our vote counting to a third-party vendor, which is Dominion. Do you know that our software for our machines is proprietary? When I entered LSU, I entered as a mathematics major. What's proprietary about 1 + 1 + 1 + 1? Right? What's proprietary about that? I talked to a clerk in North Louisiana Saturday, and I said, Mr. Clerk, do you know that you don't even have the authority to go and look at those machines? He said it's the first time in his life it's ever crossed his mind. He was shocked that he didn't have the authority. That's unacceptable. So we're going to replace that with hand-marked secure paper ballots, and within it's going to be counted by the people. We're going to give you a certified election within minutes of the polls closing. Don't believe the lie that my opponents are going to tell you that Trosclair is trying to give you Arizona and Georgia. And by the way, Georgia's ranked #2 according to that Heritage Foundation ahead of us.
Give me a break. But don't buy into the lie that they say Trosclair is trying to give you what you got in Arizona. What they had in Arizona and other states is they had a paper ballot that they were running through Dominion tabulators. All right, Dominion tabulators. So we're going to give you a certified election. Mr. John, I got a feeling I'm going to be a little more in 12 minutes. But I'm going to go as quick as I can.
Brandon, you're at 10.5.
Oh, man. I'm allowed for some more time. But we're going to give you a certified election within minutes of the polls closed, and for the first time in decades.
We'll go to 15.
Man, great, that was easy. It might be 120. So, for the first time in decades, we're going to give the people, and you won't even have to file for a FOIA request. You won't have to come and knock on my door as the Secretary of State and beg for election audit results. Within 24 hours, I'm going to put it on the Secretary of State's website. The entire election results, every single ballot in Louisiana. And guess what? You'll be able to count your own precinct, you'll be able to count your own parish, and if you really have a lot of time on your hands, you can count the whole state. Look, folks, 68% of America don't trust our elections, according to the Rasmussen poll. Why is that? Because there's no accountability, no transparency. Our politicians think, that they rule us. They work for us. They work for us, folks. They operate off of our hard-earned tax dollars. That's how government is funded. They work for us. And it's about time they started acting like it. But it starts by when the people hold our government officials accountable. I talk to legislators all the time. Well, I got a lot of phone calls on this bill. I got a lot of phone calls on that bill. Well, Mr. Representative, how many phone calls did you get? Oh, I got 4. That's unacceptable, folks. That's how we got to this mess in the first place, is by appeasement and voter apathy. That has got to change. And when we put trust back in our elections, it will change. So I'm running out of time. So we're going to replace the machines with hand-marked secure paper ballots. We're going to clean up our voter registration rolls, and we're going to keep them clean. No more people 143 years old on our voter registration rolls. We're going to work with the register of voters to follow the Constitution. What does the Constitution say? They're supposed to physically canvass their parish every 5 years. I'm a young man, but I'm not that young. But in my 40 years, I've never had a register of voters come knock on my door. Never, never, never. So we're going to clean up the registration rolls, and we're going to keep them clean. The third thing is we're going to be held accountable to the people. Because again, that's what it's all about. I tell the story all the time. You walk to the Secretary of State's office, there's big glass doors, there's plastered with Kyle Ardoin. We're not doing that no more. We're not doing that no more. This isn't about replacing one politician with another politician. When I'm elected as the next Secretary of State, it's going to say, we the people on the front door. Because that's the way it should be. It's about putting power back to the people. You heard the phrase all the time, follow the money, right? Follow the money. So we're going to implement a higher checkbook in the State Department where you can do just that. You work hard for your tax, for your paycheck, and you give it to us in the form of taxes. So we're going to show you follow the money. Every single check that we write and every single penny that we spend, you'll be able to go on the Secretary of State's website and watch that and follow it. Every month we'll have it updated. And when you can see where we're spending your money. Where we're spending your money. What's that? Oh, good deal. I'm glad you like that. So at the end of the day, I'm running out of time. This is not about replacing a politician with another politician. This is about restoring the power back, restoring trust in our elections. Getting rid of the machines going paper ballots, cleaning up the registration and keeping them clean, being completely open and honest and transparent with the people. And so what I'm asking of y'all is A, help spread the word. Go to letsgobrandon.net. Of course, that's GEAUX. And help spread the word. But everything I'm talking about here tonight and more is all on. We got videos on how we're doing the hand count process. It's so simple and so easy. We're doing hand count tours all across the state. Of course, we can't make all of them, but if you want to have one in your house or your church or whatever, we'll mail you the information that you can do it. It's so simple and so easy. So I encourage you to go watch that. I quote Ronald Reagan a lot. And in 1964, Ronald Reagan gave that great speech about the United States being that shining city on the hill. But the part that a lot of people miss is at the very, very end. He says to do your best. To do your best. That freedom is only one generation away from extinction. And to do your best for your kids and your grandkids. And that's what I'm asking for y'all to do. Do your best to preserve this great country that we have. Do your best for your kids and your grandkids. Do your best for them. There's only one candidate. There's only one candidate in this race that is identifying the problems, has solutions to fix the problems. Do it. I appreciate y'all's support. Appreciate y'all vote. And help spread the word.
All right. So our next speaker tonight.
So, we're at 15.5 minutes, but I want to come on the top, is I'll run it down. So when you get to zero, you'll have the same time,
Okay. And now we have Tom Kennedy from Orleans, and thanks for coming tonight, Tom. And you take it away.
Hello, good afternoon. I've been a businessman from numerous businesses in South this is done, but I have made some successful ones in real estate developer, commercial general contractor. I was the CFO of Alternative Source Incorporated, and we had president of ASI Stock Construction, large construction. And I'm still partner in ASI West, West Coast Engineering firm. That's my background. But what I'm really most proud about is my service knowledge. I am right now a Boy Scout leader, 2.5 gallon church. I'm the chair of Boys Scout. I'm also a member of the Orleans Parish, which is a public service kind of service brand inside Boy Scouts and so service projects there. I'm also an air life pilot, my sick patient. I'm also a first lieutenant in Louisiana television squad. And, so, I believe in service to others, and that's really the essence of who I am, is service to others. Now, let me just talk a little bit about some of the things Landon brought up. First off, let's talk about the registers. We have very good rules, and I agree with that. But the problem what we have with the rules is this. In 1941, we had a constitutional amendment that took the register of voters from the Clerk of Court's office and created 63 registers across the state of Louisiana. And those 63 registers, when they get basically pointed to their position by the local parish, whoever the leaders are at that time. And that position is a lifetime position. A lot of people don't realize that. And so those positions, a lot of these registrars are making more than the governor. They are high paying, fantastic jobs that you can never get fired from. And so they're wonderful jobs. And the reason why these voter rolls is because they can't be held accountable. There are state laws that say they have to canvass their district every 5 years. They don't do it, which they do. There is no law that looks at no methodology to remove them. And so that's why we have very voting rules. And I'm an Orleans Parish resident, despite what happened with the Napoleon recall election. And Kyle Argan had to go into court, and they had to come up with a consent judgment. They agreed that we think it was 55,000 non-voters that were on our rolls, and they agreed that we're going to move 25 for the county of the recall election. So that means that the office basically recognized that there was a huge problem in New Orleans, and I'm sure that problem exists in other large parishes, and probably some smaller parishes. I've been to smaller parishes before, likely that Orleans was probably one, but in the large parishes, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, and Metairie, that would be a significant number. And think about it, when you have a local election, you only have a small amount of people show up for these local elections. It would be easy for somebody to cheat. Have a family member that moved to Texas 2 decades ago, and they're still in the room, ask for an absentee ballot. Sending an absentee ballot to somebody. There's so much fraud in it that can go on with absentee ballots. And that's kind of the soft body of election security. absentee ballots. And so that's something that we need to, when we do these absentee ballots, we need to have a better level of security to protect the integrity of the election from those absentee ballots. Now, I want to go up and talk about my next, talk about the voting machines. There's three really types of voting machines. There's standard optical paper ballots. That's the first, and that's what Brandon was talking about. And paper ballots, the way that works is you go into your polling place, you show your ID, you get a paper ballot, you fill it out, and you walk up to the polling person and they scan it in the computer. So the record of tabulating that votes in that scanner gets scanned. But you have that paper backup copy. And so that paper backup copy gives a way to audit an election. And Brandon's correct, you cannot audit elections in Louisiana. And the reason why is because technology that we use is direct reporting voting machines. And there's another component of that Louisiana did not buy in 2006 when we started purchasing this type of machine. It's called voter verified paper trail audit. And we did not buy that option. So none of our voting machines, you can go in there and pull a paper trail on. It just doesn't exist. We need to look at new voting machines, without a doubt. And we have to change the way voting happens in our state. We do have to have another trail. I think that if we're going to continue with the electronic voting machines, we have to have that voter paper audit trail. And I think second, we're going to demand that the voting machines manufacturers print a little paper print. So when you go in there and you push the buttons and you hit cast vote, you get a little tone, you get a little printout, and you say, okay, who I'm voting for is what the machine is telling me. And if you got a problem, you can bring it up right away. And that paper receipt is really doing nothing to tell you that your vote that you cast in that, I call it the black box, actually went to the candidate that you selected. And so there's a lot of issues that face the voting machines. And my experience in construction, project management, engineering, a lot of question proposals for large construction projects. And I'm familiar with state bid law. And the Secretary of State's office has tried numerous times to put an RFP, and it can always fail. They never seem to get to the point of actually pulling the trigger fire. And so I want to write it where you can compare apples to apples among other things, the manufacturers of machines. And I want to make sure that everything's on the even playing field and above the all. And I'm not going to exclude the paper ballot, the optical standard option. That is a fantastic option. And I believe, and I'm not 100% sure that I don't have a fact, I believe that is the most secure way to hold elections is with the paper ballot system. And the reason for that is, for example, I'm going to tell you the chain of custody. We're talking about programming these machines. You program like a little box, and basically the box goes into the voting machine. All the votes are copied into this box, and the box comes out of there and it goes over to the chain of custody machine. Votes come out of the machine. Between polling place to the registrar, and you also have the programming file in front of it. Nobody really knows what takes place. It's mystery. The only way you can really eliminate that is the optical scanning solution. But I think we can get safer elections. We can do that without a doubt. Thank you.
All right, well, I guess it's time to improvise. We're waiting for a couple of candidates still, so I think at this point, we're going to go ahead and open up the floor to questions. If the candidates wouldn't mind coming back up here to this area, have a seat, make yourself comfortable, and we'll proceed to take questions from the audience. Does anybody have any questions? And you can direct them, I suppose. Yeah, why don't you come on up? Yeah. You can direct them to either of the candidates. We could probably.
Yeah.
Okay, is that okay? Everybody? Okay. All right, so we're going to have some
plenty of time for questions.
Right here.
I don't know, like, video. Oh, I'm still a bit too loud.
Oh,
Hi, guys. So I have a question for you guys. What does it exactly mean when you say we are not able to audit elections? Because I know, like, in Baton Rouge a few years ago, they had a Senate election where the vote was so close, there was like 3 votes difference between these state senators. So, somebody brought it up to me the other day, and I was like, what does that mean? And audit our election? I don't know, but next time I see some people on my app, so if y'all can elaborate.
But before I answer that question, I want to clarify a few things that Kennedy had said. I am not for a scan option. I am for a in-work ballot counted by the people. I'm not for the scan option. I do agree 100% that we need to do something about the lifetime appointments for registration. But and again, that is a part of the problem. There's no accountability bar, but we outsource our registration to a third-party vendor called Civics. That's the main problem that we have with registration, is that we outsource. January 23rd of this year, our State Department released proposed changes and amendments to Title 18. Title 18 is our election code in the United States and in our Constitution. And they wanted to make that a permanent change. Our registrar of voters doesn't do registration votes. They do early voting. Go talk to any registrar. I've talked to lots of them. They don't do registration. They do early voting, and our State Departments want to make that a permanent change. So I like having, instead of having the registration at the DMVs and then send to Civics, we should do it at the local level and do it in 64 parishes and keep it maintained at the local level and support them to physically canvass and to do their job and hold them accountable. So anyway, on that, all right, your question. The only thing that you can audit in Louisiana is the 9% of mail-in ballots. That's the only thing. So if you say that they got a recount or anything like that, the only thing that you can actually audit is the 9% of mail-in ballots. That's the only thing that you can audit. So when I say you can't audit your elections, when Miss Elizabeth leaves that machine, there is no way to tell the intent of the voter. Now, what you may hear from some clerks are, well, we had 353 people walk in, and that little tape says 353 people walked out. 153 for President Trump, 100 for Biden, 100 for Kennedy, whatever. We got our 353. That's no audit. That's Mickey Mouse. A true audit shows the ability of what the voter's intent was, so you can go and see that. And again, right now in Louisiana, you can only audit the 9% of mail-in ballots for this paper.
Let's get the other candidate answer.
Right.
Chance to answer.
I couldn't have said it better than you. Absolutely, the only way to audit elections now is to get the ballots. That's the only process. And that's why I call that machine a black box. Because once you get the cast vote together or something, that thing was a lot of it's you don't know who they would for. It's over. So that's why these machines, just people all that trade.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that you can alcohol scan them. And the reason why I do like alcohol scan them is because it takes the audit travel and it takes the electronics. So the alcohol scanning is scanning the ballots and you get it no time out of it. Update as soon as the polls close. You know your precinct at what votes. And then if there's any question, you have the paper in your paper, go back and validate that count. And so that's why I like the optical scan version.
Yeah, and the comment on that, the optical scan would be 10 times better than what we have now. When I say I'm gonna use a scanner not to tabulate votes. I'm gonna use the people to tabulate our votes. The scanner would be strictly to scan an image and put that on the State Department's website within 24 hours, so you can visit it.
He said,
Either way, you would end up with an auditable trail. Yeah, but the problem, look, 63% of America votes on paper. The problem that they have, just like our early vote, so 9% of our early vote is on paper. Do you think that they're counting it? The people? They're not counting it. They're running it through a Dominion tabulator. Go to my website. We done a demo on that. We have one of the foremost experts in election integrity. He had 6 ballots, 4 of them for Trump, 7 ballots, 4 of them for Trump, 2 of them for Biden, and 1 for Scott in Borders. He ran them through the field. He closed out the election management system, printed up the ticket, and what did it say? 4 Biden, 2 Trump, and 1 Borders. Yeah, absolutely. So the tabulators have has the same proprietary black box software as the machines do. And it shows that they can be easily manipulated.
Okay. Mr. Kennedy, if you want to
Last
respond.
one, yes.
Yeah, we're talking about road security. We have the whole, we have a problem. And we are one of the few states that does not have a problem.
The only state,
That's everything.
only state you can offer.
But we don't have an election, and so that puts our election at risk. And I don't like the black box vote. I just don't think that is. I don't think, if the public can't go and see what it's doing, if the public can't look at it, it's not a public document, then we shouldn't be using it for elections.
Right.
Thank you.
I'd like to know where you stand on masks.
What's the name? What is it?
Association of Secretaries of State.
That's a softball question. The day that Brandon Trosclair takes office, we will remove Louisiana from the National Association of Secretary of States. The day that takes office. And I will tell you what, Kyle Orleans is no longer in this race, and so I don't always talk about it when I don't have the time to do so. But you look under the Twitter files, you look at the Lance Schmidt versus Biden lawsuit, you look at the congressional hearings that are going on in Washington, D.C. right now, you're seeing how our government has censored us on social media, how your government has stepped on your First Amendment rights.
That's right.
Well, guess what? Guess who was in charge of leading that fight? Kyle Orleans, the Secretary of State of Louisiana. He was the chairman of the National Association of Secretary of State, and he was the co-chair of the Center for Internet Security. Why does the Secretary of State be the chairman for Internet Security? Blows my mind, especially when they say our machines aren't connected to the internet. Blows my mind. But Kyle is on video. Go to Gateway Pundit and just Google and just search Kyle, and he's on there. There's a video there. His number one accomplishment in 6 years as our Secretary of State was censoring Americans, working with his federal partners to censor Americans. And for complete transparency, he calls it misinformation and disinformation. But at the end of the day, it's censoring. So if there is an organization out there that thinks they have the authority and the power to shut down people's First Amendment rights, I don't care what they get right. They got that way too wrong, and I'm not going to stand and I'm not going to work. So I'm holding one group of people, and that's what
Thank you. Mr. Kennedy?
I have a little bit different take. Yes, Carl has had some problems in.
Can't hear him.
When you have a body of Secretary of State talk about election security, election laws, and you figure out what laws and what things to do. I just try to do it from in past in our state. I think that some groups of people who get together, and I don't agree with everything every organization does, and nobody does. But I think that saying that we would not be a member, I would like to
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes.
I've gone and attended the OE Systems Committee meeting, the last one. I hope you can hear okay, but I did a little bit of research before I went. I learned that a lot of states use the paper ballot with the optical scanner and then the tablet. I heard all of the presentations of the different vendors and such. Today was there, E or whatever it was. And I'm still not sold on the tabulator having the safety measures necessary because the data is going into a portal, into a machine that can be read and accessed. Could be online, could be over the internet, could be local, could be removed, could be manipulated. And I just don't seem to trust that. Can somebody explain where we ended up? And we're talking about June of last year, end of June last year when these committees took place. Where are we today with respect to selecting machines and systems going forward? Can anybody answer that?
Mr. Kennedy, you want to?
Yeah, basically, we're nowhere. To answer the question. There's a committee been working on trying to determine what other vendors are going to be. And the problem is the RFP that was written, request proposal, had all kind of flaws in it. And it had certain aspects of it to that one vendor could only supply that type of meat. And so the office did not go through and evaluate every single vendor, find out if, and put in the RFP all of these same qualifying points. So if you go ahead and you want to steer a vote or steer a bid to a certain vendor, you say, I want this particular software, I want to do this particular item that the other two machines don't do. And that way you could steer the bid to a particular vendor. And I got a feeling that the reason why we have the things is because somebody's been trying to steer some of these bids. They're very lucrative. There's a lot of money to buy those machines. And so I think the reason why these RFPs have not been successful for years, I mean, years, we're renting machines, we lease machines currently.
What?
We lease voting machines for elections. But we don't own them. For early voter.
It's all good.
We don't own them. And so, we need to get out of the business of leasing machines. We need to own our own machine. We need to write an RFP out there that's fair and puts everybody bidding apples to apples for the same product. That's why it's failed numerous times. I mean, I'm saying numerous times. It's been failing for years.
Year and a half.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Kennedy says steering RFPs. That's called corruption and bid rigging. The reason we don't have new machines now is in 2018, our governor accused him of bid rigging because it wasn't written wrong. There wasn't problems. It was specifically written for a certain vendor. Because there's $100 million at stake. That's what it's going to cost for new machines. $100 million up front and $100 million over the next 10 years. And he wasn't accused of bid rigging once. He was accused of bid rigging in 2021. That's what led to the Louisiana Voting Commission that you referred to. And what did that Louisiana Voting Commission say? Every single expert, not some, not most, Ms. Lenore picks on me because she knows what I'm going to say. Not some, not most, but every single expert said that hand-marked and hand-counted paper ballots was the safest and most secure way to host an election. That's what the Voting Commission said. That's what they approved. They passed Act 480. Now, Act 480, what it says there that the next Secretary of State or the Secretary of State should choose to use a machine, a ballot marking device, or a true hand-marked secure paper ballot. Can I use it for a second? No. Every single state that uses ballot marking devices not let their citizens audit their elections, even though they have a paper trail. They're not letting the people audit. And I'm 100% against also, like Arkansas, they give you a little receipt. You put that in your pocket when you leave. That's giving you a warm, fuzzy feeling about as long as it takes you to get to the house. It doesn't mean you can audit anything. There's still nothing for you to go and look at. All it is giving you a warm and fuzzy feeling. So that's why I'm against that. But every single expert, to answer your question, every expert said hand-marked, hand-counted secure paper ballots were the safest and most secure way to go. And so they haven't gotten, I think, so one thing that Kyle has done right is wait and let the next Secretary of State make that decision and put that RFP out there. But we're not going to put an RFP out there for a machine. All right, we spent out, it's $100 million for new machines, $100 million over 10 years for software, upgrades, and maintenance. We spend $2 million every single year in warehouses across the state of Louisiana to have these machines. It costs us $250,000 every time we have an election to distribute these machines. Yes, you're right. $2 million a year to store $250,000 every time we have an election to distribute these machines. Yeah, the whole goal when we started running for Secretary of State, and I say we because it's all about the people, was to have safe and secure and honest elections. That's the goal. We've gained so many more benefits of that. Specifically, you got a financial gain there to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. But you got people growing together in their community when they're getting there and they're counting and they're tallying the votes. You got transparency. You got honesty, and you're bringing legitimacy back to the process. There's tons of gains at it, but just the financial gain is just the tip of the iceberg. Sorry for being long.
Question right here. Next question.
Let me add to that other question. Finish up. Brandon mentioned the ballot marking devices and all of that. And I believe that that's an important voting machine. And the reason why is because it's basically a touch screen. You have a function of it. I have an own that's legally fine. You blow up the fine. So the person that's using that type of machine can see it. There's also a plug-in for a headphone and stuff like that. So if you hear turn up the volume on it. So those are made for people with disabilities. And so you have to have some measure of those machines in our system. And most states have some of those machines. But that should not be the primary way that we try to count our elections.
Next question is right here.
I've got a couple of questions. First of all, as Secretary of State, whoever it is, do you have the authority to make the changes unilaterally? The authority to make the changes that you guys first question. Second, if you could speak to the processes that you need to go through to accomplish the challenge process. And the third thing is, if you're Secretary of State and the Louisiana laws, election laws are not being followed, who do you use to enforce, or how are you going to enforce those laws?
Gentlemen, I'm gonna limit you to 1 minute on each of his 3 questions, okay?
Okay.
All right.
First of all, authority. Well, if you talk about authority to purchase machines, you know, the office has that authority to go ahead and put RFP out for machines, but we have to get, you know, the legislature to pull up the money. When you're talking about trying to change the voter rolls and trying to get clean voter rolls, that's going to take a constitutional amendment because those registered offices were started from constitutional amendment. So that's going to be a long haul. The second part of the question is, the second part?
Well, there's let's go to the enforcement. How are you going to enforce it?
Well, if you talk about voter rolls, there is no enforcement mechanism. You can sanction and do things like that, but you can't remove. There is a process that you can try to remove a registrar. There's really no mechanism to do that. And then the office has to, work within the guidelines of state laws. And so whatever the laws are in the book at the time, what the office has to function. Whether we like them or we don't, it's the process. So we could work with the legislature, probably see if we can get, I think if we get a Republican governor, the next cycle, I think we should be able to get some laws passed that we could change to try to restrict these registers and not have, registrars and not have them have lifetime jobs. Put some accountability on here. I think too much time.
No, you got
Okay.
a minute there. Okay.
I like Mr. Kenny. I'm just learning about Mr. Kenny. We just got in this race a few weeks ago. But I disagree with what you just said. With the authority to do hand-marked secure paper ballots, the Secretary of State already has that authority under Act 480 that was passed by the legislature. The only approval they need from there is the Government Affairs Committee is what they need to enact that RFP or that procedure in place. You don't have to go to the whole legislature, just the Government Affairs Committee. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, it isn't long and drawn out. I bet you bureaucracy doesn't tie my hands. I bet you I will have clean registration rolls in less than a week. Because on the 192nd paragraph of Title 18, it specifically says the Secretary of State shall maintain and keep the voter rolls clean. You can get a hack of a IT specialist to just follow the law and clean them up right away. It's not too long and drawn out. So read the 192nd paragraph of that. We talk about not following the law. Our Constitution specifically says that our votes shall be counted in public. Are they doing that? Absolutely, they're not. So we have the authority already. And how would I enforce that? I would send my team out there and the Attorney General out there. The Attorney General is the attorney of record for the State Department and demand they do their job. I mentioned earlier that we asked every single Attorney General candidate and every single Secretary of State candidate, and to be fair, just before Mr. Kennedy got married, to join us in our lawsuit to clean up our voter rolls. None of them joined us. Not a one. Just the Brandon Trosclair campaign is the only one who stepped up and said, we want fair and honest elections. So everything I'm talking about tonight, we already have the authority under Act 480 and under Title 18. It's already there. We just got to get busy and do our job for the people of Louisiana so we can have those elections in Louisiana as good as it's people. Common sense to me.
So
the question here I have, and I want to make sure that this never happens in Louisiana, what's happened in Arizona, what's happened in Georgia, across this country, across the President Trump, the blatant election fraud. And here in Louisiana, I've seen it with my eyes with who changed our entropy, right? New Orleans, the buying of, I was a witness of, so what can we do? What you guys each would do to ensure that that would never happen? That Trump's leading by 100,000 votes at 10 o'clock at night, the polls mysteriously closed now, but there's videos showing that there are workers working in the polls after 10, and then the next morning, Biden comes out the winner, and he's now leading by 100,000 votes. So what would you guys do to ensure that that would never happen in Louisiana?
All right, so first of all, as long as you have humans, you're gonna have the potential for corruption and fraud, okay? But if you take away the cheat, you take away the machines, and you restore trust and accountability and be able to audit your election, again, when you start holding your government officials accountable, they're gonna start doing their job. Ronald Reagan used to say it all the time. When the people do too little, the elected often do way too much. And that's where we're at in America. They're doing as much as they can get away with. It's not just on accident. It's intentional. These politicians know what they're doing. So I'm gonna be your next Secretary of State. I'm gonna go over there and clean it up and get it right with people. I'm here to tell you, I'm not a politician. I'm not gonna stick around for the rest of my life. Give me a term or two. We're gonna fix this and get rid of it. And then I hope you elect another good Secretary of State that's beholden to the people of Louisiana. My end game is not to be a career politician. My end game is to go hang out in the woods with my beautiful wife and enjoy retirement at some point in time. I'm not hanging around forever. But I want you to hold me accountable, and whoever that next person is, hold them accountable. Hold them accountable. Demand you can audit your elections. Demand you have clean voter registration laws. It's all about accountability and transparency.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yeah, the only way you can stop the fraud, like I said, you have people involved in the process. It's always potential for fraud. If you have poll watchers and you have that audit trail, that paper audit trail, is an absolute must. It's something that the average person thinks that why we don't have that. Why we don't have an audit trail for our elections? Our elections is a staple of our republic. We do not have an audit trail. That's unheard of, and that's not stopping. You have to get the right voting machines, whether it's scanned paper ballots or some other verified protection system coming out of the electronic system, so we have a whole lot of training. And that's really the only way we're going to win this election. Like some of that funny business that you saw, like people working in the background and all of that. I just don't understand how they could try to indict a president on something that they're causing themselves. I don't know how that works.
I almost wanted to follow up with this question, because I didn't hear a whole lot about enforcement. But my question is, what is your position on early voting in line?
I'm going to tell you, early voting, perhaps. Early voting, you have to use a different type of machine. You use a different type of machine for early voting. And you have to have early voting. You have to give people an opportunity that's out of town or have other commitments on election day. But that is another spot in potential for fraud. It's the same thing as the mail-in ballots. All of those type of things that you have, other than going to polling places and voting, all those extra voting opportunities that you have create another level and another chance for fraud in our system. And so we need to, whenever people can go on voting, we have to have people go watch, make sure that, and I think people should be there from the Secretary of State's office watching, make sure that the election is held fair and proper, and there's no funny things going on.
Who's next?
I'm sorry. So when it comes to early voting, I need to offer as 42% of Louisiana early votes, and Mr. Kennedy was 100% correct. So the new machines that we use for early voting, we lease those machines. They're Dominion ICX machines, the same ones that the Haldeman report said that they can be hacked and manipulated in at least 15 different ways. All right, so that's unacceptable. The answer obviously is hand-marked secure paper ballots. That's hand counted by the people. So I'll never early vote again. I'm on for election day. The reason why is people say all the time that, the early voting is 42% of the vote. Our machines don't have to be connected to the internet, folks, in order for them to be manipulated. Can I borrow your bottle here real quick? I'm in the grocery business. This is everything to us. This is for inventory control. This is how we change prices. This is how we put things on sale. So when a company already knows that what 42% of the vote is, they don't have to hook up to the internet on the day of the election and start playing funny games. All they have to do is change the source code. I love Miss Elizabeth to death. She's gonna come check it. I'm gonna give this $2 for $1. I really love Miss Joyce too, but for analogy, I'm not friends with Miss Joyce, so it's $1.99 for her. Our registers don't have to be connected to the internet. It'll also be about the source code. And what have we already said many, many times tonight about the source code? It's proprietary black box software. There's not a single elected official or private citizen in the state of Louisiana who can go and look into that black box. Not even our Secretary of State. That's a problem. If the case was that we had paper ballots and we had these scanners that were owned and operated by the state of Louisiana, and they were open source software, meaning they were completely transparent and accountable, would be wrong for Secretary of State. But that's not the case. That's not the case. We have proprietary software on all those machines. MR secure paper ballots are really the answer across all fronts. Did that answer your question?
This is more of a statement than this question. There's nobody in this room that ever convinced me that a voting machine, be it a machine or a tabulator, can ever be secure. If you hold a Louisiana driver's license, your information was hacked a couple of months ago.
Yep.
The Department of Defense has been hacked. The major institutions, banking institutions, in this country, around the world have been hacked. There's no way you would ever convince me that any electronic voting machine or tablet can be made secure. All right.
I'm not gonna ever try to convince you otherwise, because you're spot on with that. So I agree 100%. By the way, our other opponents didn't show up, so I'm having a great time with Mr. Kennedy. I'm here until the cows come home, so.
About the,
Next question.
we finish up.
Wait,
Thank you, Father, to Father.
He didn't finish his answer.
Excuse me, folks, it's too hard for us to spot block this first favor. If you have a question, I'm gonna ask you to stand right here to get a line. I want to make it as fair as possible because people are not all gonna, anyway, Jeff, you want to go ahead? Oh, I'm sorry.
I think
I'm
Kennedy.
sorry. Mr. Kennedy, you can finish your statement. I'm sorry.
First, I was gonna answer, you're correct, there's no computer. Years ago, when I first got out of school, I was an automotive consultant. I took a class, presented by the FBI. The first thing that really struck me was it said, if you ever want to keep your computer secure, never connect it to the internet. And so, but when they program these disks and stuff like that, these voting machines, they have to use a standalone device that has never been connected to the internet. It has been a secured location, a secured room. Because once it's connected to the internet, it works. Somebody can put code in there and they could go ahead and rewrite that election. And so we are going to have technology in some way or form in our election process. We just have to make sure that we put these roadblocks and these checkpoints in place. We can keep that machine and that down secure. Do the best we can.
You can trust papers.
Next question.
Gentlemen, I don't like early voting. I don't like ballot harvesting. I don't like drop boxes. I don't like voting machines. I like day of voting with a hand-marked, secure paper ballot. Now, for some reason, France, not a country that you would think is like a world leader, but France has gone to this and seems to have elections that are very safe and secure. And they get their results done that night. Now, the criticism I always hear, gentlemen, about paper ballots is it's gonna take too long. So how can France tabulate all their results, and I think they have about 40 million votes, in one night, and get it done securely, and we can't figure out how to do that here? So that would be my question.
Oh, the answer to your question is they're using that hand marked ballot with the optical scanner. And the optical scanner is what's getting that timely data. So basically, as you fill it out, you bring it up to the polling person and they scan it through that machine. And that machine is counting the vote. And so if there's ever a question on a recall and say, oh, well, I lost by 400 votes, well, you have the paper trail that was filled out by the hand of the voter. And so you have that trail there for the audit. And that's the technology that France is using. And it's in a lot of, in the majority of the states in the United States actually use optical scanners. And it's hand ballots scanned by an optical scanner.
Jeff, my answer to that question is because we don't have no leadership. That's the crux of the problem. There's a lot of symptoms of that problem, but the crux of the problem is we don't have any leadership. Me and Ms. Lenore, we travel all over this state going talking to good people like they're here tonight. And oftentimes we'll stop by and visit with the sheriff and clerks and the registers. And the first thing that happens when I walk in the clerks is, we can't do it. I heard about you. Said, Bob, we can't do it. We can't. In the private sector, it's all about we can. Every decision that we make, I tell people all the time, I'm in the customer service business and we happen to sell groceries. Every Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock when we have a board meeting, I haven't been to work in 9 months, but they're still doing it. Every decision that we make is about, is it going to improve the customer service experience of our shoppers? And that's what it comes to. Are our government officials, our elected leaders, are they saying that every time they make a decision? Is this going to improve the experience of our citizens? I don't think so. So it comes down to leadership. Go to letsgobrandon.net, go to the campaign Facebook page. We have a 4-minute video, and it shows you exactly our process to where we're going to give you a certified, auditable election within minutes of the polls closing. So it can absolutely be done.
Thank you. During the 2020 presidential election, we all know that there's voter fraud on both sides. So do you think there was voter fraud in Louisiana, and if so,
So to answer your question is that I think there absolutely was voter fraud. Our Secretary of State, our Deputy Secretary of State, one of our opponents, he said there's been widespread fraud all across the country. We wouldn't know here in Louisiana because you can't audit our elections. You can't audit your elections, but there's a lot of different statistical anomalies out there that prove that there has been. One of them is 63 of our 64 parishes in the age group of 70 to 100, and there's only a few people that fall in that category here tonight, but from 70 to 100 years old, 100% turnout. 100% turnout. Now, is that reality?
No.
Well, guess what? We had one overachiever, one parish, the 64th one, it was 105% turnout. And that's the State Department's data, folks. So there's statistical anomalies, but again, we're the only state in the country, you can't audit our elections. That's why we had that 401 Sunday that you were there, and they asked the same question, and it was yes or no. And I held up both. Because you know that there was, but you can't always prove it because you can't get the data, and you can't audit our elections.
I agree with Trosclair. We have to have it on the train. We can't audit our elections. We know there's voter fraud across the country, and the only reason why we know some of the widespread voter fraud is because people have videotape evidence of it. Of course, that seems like that videotape evidence today is no longer good. People don't like to accept it, but it's true. And we did have some precincts that had more votes than they had registered voters. How does that happen? And you can't go back and when you go back and look at these registers, the paper ballot process, the reason why they push so hard back on paper ballot is they don't want to have to earn the money that they receive. These people are paid well. They should be, handling the office the way it should be, and to make sure our elections are secure. We should not have a 144-year-old person that's been dead deceased. And in New Orleans, it's really unique because the Registrar of the Voters Office is located in the same building, City Hall, with the Office of Vital Records. How difficult would it be at the end of every month to just go to the office and say, give me a list of everybody that we issued justice in the state of Louisiana last year, walk back to the office and clean your rolls talking about difficult things. There's even data mining companies that the registrar could use to go ahead, and that's how, we call NOLA organization found that 50-some-thousand votes. They basically used the data mining company and said, this person in your voter rolls like the same date of birth, the same, but they've been living in Texas and voted in Texas for the last 20 years. They're a registered voter in Texas. And so those registers could use the same software, the same techniques, and if you didn't want to spend the money to hire data mining companies, they could just do it through hand delivered, putting paper out to the final records office, and you just do the research. I mean, the internet is fantastic out there. You can much figure out anything.
I'm sure your plan has something to include cleaning up the registration process. I mean, as a check little thing on that, are you a citizen, yes or no? But I don't see whether there's any verification process of that. I mean, particularly if you're doing it online, it just seems it's just too easy to register.
What exactly is your question there?
Is cleaning that up with keep illegals from registering to vote.
All right, so our state department hangs their entire hat, they hang their entire reputation on the Heritage Foundation survey. So I'm gonna answer your question with the Heritage Foundation survey says that we have an F in the accuracy of our voter rolls. We have an F in proof of citizenship. We have an F in implementation of a voter ID. So that's where we at. So like I said before, follow the law. And we have 700,000 people that are inactive and ineligible on our voter rolls. It won't take long to clean that up at all. For starters, it's against the law to be registered at a UPS store or a post office box? There's dozens in every parish. Orleans is not the worst, folks. Y'all see, they're not the worst. All you gotta do, a novice IT guy can quickly just run an address against all post office boxes and clean it up right there. That's a big part of the problem. Right here when we're doing canvassing, so we got a lot of great organizations out there, like Convention of States, like We the People. So we canvassed several parishes. We found a halfway house right here in New Orleans, has chains on the doors. It's been locked up for over 3 years. And you have 485 people that are still registered to vote there. And we let the authorities know, and it still hasn't been cleaned up. So again, to Mr. Kennedy's point, these people need to be held accountable. They're not held accountable. Lifetime appointment for registered voters. It's the craziest thing I've ever heard of. I mean, everybody would want that job, right? Go in every day, make 6 figures, and not being held accountable. That's what I want.
I think, to be honest with you, I would like to try to work with our legislatures. Florida just passed a new law basically outlawing some driver's license in their state. They found that those states were issuing driver's license to illegal aliens. And, we need to make sure we pass legislation that in Louisiana that we can validate that only U.S. citizens can vote. And that's if you need a U.S. birth certificate or something, we have to have something. And I know that that registration process was a challenge for the days of segregation. And so we had to pass laws to make that easier because there was a lot of discrimination. There was a lot of pushback and poll taxes and things like that that was being charged to minorities. But I don't think we have that anymore in our society. And we do have an economic level that's there. So I think that we can go back and put a little more security on the registering vote and proving that you're a U.S. citizen should be absolutely.
Hi, I heard some talk about this earlier, and I would be curious in this audience, how many people know who the registrar of voters is in your parish? Okay. I gather it's a parish by parish office. How do you get appointed? Is it appointed by the parish government? Parish council? Is it a mayor in some situations?
Yeah, how did you get that job?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we all won't.
I don't know.
We talked about it several times tonight that it's a lifetime appointment and they're appointed by the parish council.
So I've never read a story about so-and-so resigned.
Because they stay there forever because it's a good job. I mean, nobody wants to leave.
So, we basically have policies
How can I apply?
Yeah. The state amendment, 1941, is the governing body of that package. And that's basically how this.
Is there any, laws of what this supposed to do or not?
There's guidelines to what, as far as, laws that you can try to hold them accountable and say that you're, we're gonna impeach you out of your office because you're not doing your job good. No.
Well, I slightly disagree with that. You can't impeach them. You're 100% right with that. You can't do that. But again, I'm gonna refer back to the 192nd paragraph of Title 18. It says the Secretary of State and registered voters shall keep their voter registration rolls clean. Shall, not may, not if they think about it, not if they want to. They shall keep voter rolls clean. That's exactly why I'm suing for right now, the Secretary of State and the registrar of voters. So we can have a fair and honest election, keep clean voter rolls.
Okay, I'm gonna completely switch lanes here for just a second. One thing Kyle did that I will give him credit for is he has cleaned up a number of elections that we would hold in a year. I am really sick and tired of these little tiny surprise elections where we have one millage tax in the middle of like July, and of course it's gonna pass because 5 people go out to vote. It's the people who want it to pass, and nobody even knows about the tax. So as Secretary of State, can y'all please, for the love of God, get rid of these ridiculous elections? First of all, it'll save the state money. It'll save the state a god ton of money. And 2, these people will be held more accountable to those taxes because actual people will go out to actually vote and read these things that they're voting on. All right, sorry.
So, yeah, I agree. I think we're still having a lot of elections, so I was thinking we still cut back and again, help people want to go to the polls more often and encourage people to go out there and vote. But again, I'm gonna refer back to the law. So one thing that Kyle did do good is he removed us from ERIC. ERIC was a George Soros funded third-party vendor. There's great third-party vendors in Louisiana, it's the state party. There was a third-party vendor that managed our registration. And so he was the first Secretary of State in the United States that removed Louisiana from that. And I applaud that decision. But if he had the authority to move us off of ERIC, don't you think he has the same authority to keep our registration rolls clean? I think so. And again, it says it in our state constitution.
To go back and answer your question on the few elections, yes, we do need fewer elections, but sometimes the state law is kind of foolish. If you have somebody resign or office, you have to
That's
have
special elections.
Definitely, we need to try to limit the number of elections because I want to make sure that people enjoy voting and they don't get frustrated by voting. And like you said, sometimes we put this little tax millage or something like that, and then you feel like you have to go vote because you don't want to have to pay extra property tax.
Exactly. But it just costs too much money.
Right. And if it costs $250,000 to move those machines around and voting there,
They still have to do it. They still have to do it.
Okay, I have a question. This kind of surprised me. And I'm not sure if it's gonna surprise you. So when was the power given to the Secretary of State to to sign us into contract with Dominion? And was that power once previously the power of the governor? Because I've heard that other states have removed the power from the Secretary of State and given it back to the previous person, maybe the governor? Are you aware of that? Because I do know in Louisiana, the power is in the Secretary of State's hands, but I also know that it's been taken away from the Secretary of State.
I'm trying to give that to the governor. I
just think that's a really bad idea.
I think there might be a little bit of confusion there, Ms. Martha.
Okay.
And I think what you're referring to is
disqualified properly, property. He done within this district, and how do I know that? Is because we had him served, because I'm suing him for taking revenge against me, and we had him served, and the address which has listed with the Secretary of State does not live there, and it's written from a subpoena. Then he uses a PO box. So is that legal, and can you do that? Because otherwise that should be disqualified from this race also.
So I'm not familiar with that specific example, but on the front page of the Advocate, my parish is with the same exact thing. We had one guy that he was not living in the district, and he qualified to run for parish council in that district. So they went to court yesterday. The judge ruled that and he's showing progress of moving there, that he can qualify and run. But that is not a decision up to the Secretary of State. That's a legislative law issue. Otherwise, you can have that's way too much power to give the Secretary of State. They can go pick and choose who can qualify and who can't. That's a legislative law issue. It really has nothing to do with the Secretary of State.
Okay. Yeah, matter of fact, I followed the Derek Shepard issue. You're right, he has a seat already in St. Parish, so, that's really the judge, I think. I think maybe that was a judge.
Yeah, he's appealed it.
And it needs probably. Yes. I think
It's going to be heard Friday.
It happens. Because, if there's evidence for it, there's no reason.
All right, thank you.
So my question is not about elections, but the Secretary of State also helps retailers, right, like small business and businesses, and are incorrect?
To a point.
Right, like, okay, so let me just say the premise of my
Okay.
I work with a lot of different independent retailers, especially New Orleans, Louisiana, but we are a very small market, independent market. We have the most non-chain owners of different entities. And when challenges arise for these retailers, I find that I can't give them, the retailers, the support that really I think that they deserve, being a small business owner. And when I contact the Secretary of State's office, I'm really just ignored, and it's very frustrating. I wanted to see if the experience would be any different with you.
The Secretary of State has no ability to help small businesses and fund small business or help them. But what they do have is they have the Go Biz website, and you can go in and register an LLC, a corporation, stuff like that. And now I can tell you, as a businessman, I have registered companies in probably about 15 different states, and Louisiana is probably one of the most user-friendly places to go to start a new business. You don't have to go pay a lawyer thousands of dollars. Now you can sit at your home computer and you can go ahead and file a new LLC probably within about 30 minutes, depending on how fast you type. And so that's really the benefit of the office is the user-friendliness of basically on the start of business.
Yeah, I think he answered it, did a great job answering it. They don't have the authority. It's all about having a laissez-faire type of environment for businesses and capitalists. They can't help what they do when it comes to businesses. You do your filings, your annual report. First off, your filings become a limited liability corporation or an S corp or whatever the case. You do that. You do your annual reports with them, be good standing with the Secretary of State. A lot of notaries. I think it is actually a pretty doggone good site. I think the biggest complaint that I get is actually from notaries, that they think it's cumbersome, and they all have to go there once a year to renew their license. That is very cumbersome. One of my notaries back home at the IRS.gov is easier than the Go Biz, but that's really the extent they can't go out there and support a business for particular.
Okay, thank you.
And we have one final question.
Good evening. This question is for Henry. I see that you write for
Correct.
and I thank you for your service you've helped us. Greatly appreciate that. My question is, since you've been here for the most part, your responses have been reactive. My question specifically is, how can I, as a Louisiana voter, legally registered, Louisiana voter, how can I be certain that you're going to be not just proactive, but in necessary cases, preemptive for the citizens of Louisiana?
Well,
Bless you.
I can answer that. Preemptively, I would start immediately on trying to clean the voter rolls. That's not a reactive thing. That's basically going out there and making sure that, you know, the people that are registered to vote are still in the state. They're still alive. That's just simple. I want to make sure that we have a secure election. We don't have an audit trail. There's no way. And so I'm going to work really diligently to make sure that we find a new solution to voting in this state, that we get that audit trail. And like Mr. Trosclair said, you know, basically, in a lot of states, you know, you can have, you know, like, for example, Georgia and some of the other states that have massive recounts, or some of these states that you don't know who won the election for a week. You know, those are states that most likely have different types of voting systems, because that's mandated, and they say, well, hey, we get 3 options, and this precinct says, I'll pick A, I'll pick B here, I'll pick C there. And so we want to make sure that we keep things consistent in Louisiana. Same machines, every precinct, the same backups, every precinct, the same clean voter rolls, every precinct.
I'm sorry, I didn't intend to have a follow-up.
That's okay.
What are the best practices for that, for the voting, for the tabulation of the voting, of the votes for the citizens? What's the best practice for that? Is there any practice laid
You
out?
talk about tabulating votes, or you?
All of it, because I want to make sure that we're represented properly.
Oh, well,
If I vote, okay, I voted for Trump last election,
okay.
right? Clearly, he's not in office. Stolen from him, out from under his feet. I want to make sure that whatever vote I cast, that it is a direct representation of what my values are, what I want for any future grandchildren that I have, because I don't have any yet. I want to make sure that this country is still intact. I lay close down, close mine. All of that is part of it. I want to make sure that whoever is in the office of the Secretary of State is going to represent me and going to put it absolutely without doubt best for me and my family and my friends, people I don't even know.
I hand filled out that. When did you go to polling place? You fill out. I don't think we'd be different, you know, in our opinion, based on how we calculate. He wants to have manual counting, and I want to have electronic scanning counting. And I think both methods can be done. I just think, personally, I believe that the scanning method, it gives you faster results. It has less chance of having an election result. And so you actually go to the polling place, you're going to get that ballot in your hand, you'll fill it out, and you walk up to your poll person, they're going to scan a machine in. And so you know that you physically touched that ballot, you selected who you want. It's not that just black box mystery we have now. And I want to make sure that we get voting machines that are safe and secure. Did I answer your question?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one last guest, Clerk Morel has arrived, and I'd like to give him 12 minutes to wrap up. We're running out of time here. They're going to take us out at 8:30. And then at that point, you all can ask Clerk Morel.
How you doing, man?
Brandon Trosclair.
Everybody okay with that?
Thank you, Eric. Thank you very much. Thank you. I apologize for being late. And I got the room. That's cool. My name is Morel. I just recently, a year ago, retired as clerk of criminal court in Orleans. I was there for 16 years. All clerks in the state are responsible for elections. Each one of us are the chief election officer for our parish. The Secretary of State is responsible for the be the chief election officer for the state of Louisiana. I heard you talk about the machines, but rest assured, the machines we have now, I don't care how old they are, they're very good. They cannot be hacked. What I mean by that, the hacking election, you have to go to each one of those machines to change the rules. That will never happen. Right now, when someone votes, and I like the system the way it is now, I just wish we could improve on it. But once the polls close, there's a printout, show how many people voted. Now, that machine, they have to check, make sure the number of people voting on that machine matches the printout. That's important. Now, 3 days after that, they go back and verify the count. And the same thing, they get a printout again, make sure the numbers match, and that's fine. A paper printout is kind of, I'd say it's not a good idea. If you vote and they give you a printout, all it's gonna do is say you voted. It's not gonna say who you voted for. Because it's private, it's confidential. So I'm looking for something much better. If you can improve on what we have now, I'm all for it. I've dealt with these machines for 16 years. Every parish uses the same kind of machine. The Secretary of State is responsible for 64 warehouses. Every parish has their own warehouse to store the machines. That's important. You know, people ask me, how can you assure that the count is correct? And that's why we have those state calls. When you close the poll, we get the count, make sure it match, we print out the number on the machine. If there's one number different, we have to have a meeting on it. And when the machines go back to the warehouse, you go straight to that machine and try to find out what happened. You have people sometimes going polling booth and don't vote and walk out. That counts as a vote. So that's why we have commissioners, entertaining commissioners, and poll workers are the most important part of the election. Because they are the ones who verify who you are to allow you to vote. They're the ones who are looking on their sheet to see that this person in front of me is the one on the vote verify that you're voting. Very seldom you have a person who tries to go there and vote for someone. We have had time where a mother and a daughter has the same name. And we have to get, when you catch it, you have to ask your date of birth, be sure you have the right one. Things like that happen. But our elections, as far as I'm concerned, are done pretty good. The integrity of the final count is important. The only thing the clerk does is make sure that those paper ballots, those fax ballots that have been counted by the commission, that's done through the same time while the election is going on. That's the only time you really have a mistake. And usually when there is a challenge, if there's any mistake, it's with those paper ballots. Because when the polls close, you take the cartridge out of the back of the machine, you bring it to the clerk's office, you put it in the system, that tally up all of those, goes to the state. I've never had any trouble. I have had trouble when someone forgot to take the cartridge out of the machine. And we make sure every time the cartridge comes, we check off that this cartridge. We do one load up for almost 5 hours until we went after. The commissioner is supposed to bring it from dinner to go get the cartridge out of the machine. Doesn't happen that often. But before every election, I bring my commission, go on there between 15 and 18 members commission. The law has changed, right? Very well, they change the law. And they always certify that they have taken the class. It's really not that difficult because our commissioners do a really good job. And the poll workers, they're right there to help you. So I have no complaint with what they do. But I've heard about changing machines. I have no problem with that. But make sure they're better than the ones we have now. Even though they're old, they're very effective. As long as, you want to make sure that the integrity of the result of an election is real, accurate. And that's what we do. The position I'm trying to get in, is just a larger version of what I did as clerk. I certify elections locally. I keep records for the court. The state, Secretary of State certified elections that comes from the local clerks, and he keeps the records of the archives for the corporation. We got 5 museums that the Secretary of State has control. There's 6 divisions of the Secretary of State, and he's responsible for that. The budget for the Secretary of State last year was $94 million. I don't know what it is this time. It's 23. My budget, I can only tell you what I filed with the city of New Orleans, because in New Orleans, the city is responsible for my operation of my office and for my personnel. When I submit a budget, I can only submit what I need for my employees. I could not tell you what it costs to operate my office. Because the city, if I need 5 boxes of copy paper, I just tell them and bring it to them and get price on it. I have all the bills. They pay for gas, repairs. I mean, all the expenses, period. New Orleans is the only one in the state that has that. So I don't have that much of a budget to deal with, but I have to make sure the office is ran correctly. The Secretary of State is the second most important position in this state. The governor, the executive director, the Secretary of State. He makes sure that what you do, your vote, is counted. And we don't have that right for you to vote. We don't have the democracy. That's why it's so important for the clerks, the Secretary of State, to make sure that the integrity of the election is protected. I have made any suggestions to the outgoing Secretary of State. He's a friend of mine. Been doing it for 40 years. The job he's done has been pretty good. All I want to do is improve on him to make sure you get what you deserve. A fair election, integrity, and result that you can't question. Because of the system we have now, it's pretty protected. Really, it might be a little cumbersome, or you might say some sheets too big, but it's good. Now, what do you want to jeopardize having a fair election? Or have one where you have a quick election? I don't want anyone to know who I voted. But if you use a system where you get a crowd, you vote for this person, that person, this person, the vote is no longer secret. I'm not for that. We have a right to get that vote to vote for whoever you want. Prior to being clerk of court, I was in the legislature for 23 years. And I tell you, the bills that are passed in the legislature, sometimes you have to really be careful. I'll give you a simple example. Answer this question. If you stop kicking your dog, yes or no? So you used to kick your dog. I mean, that's the way some bills go. You gotta be careful. So when they ask you to vote on a proposition, try and find a group, an agency that can give you a good interpretation. And I learned a lot from those. I had a bill I wanted to pass. I knew by passing criminal justice, it would be killed. So I passed it through the House of Government. I was the chairman. So when these legislators tell you that this particular bill is good, read it yourself. Because it may sound good, smells good, sounds good, look good, it's gotta be good. So a few times in the legislature, I was the only person voting against legislation. I'll tell you one that's easy. There was a bill introduced that anyone running for office has to pass a drug test. Drug test, what kind of drug test? All of the Senate, all the House go through. So I sued the legislature, and I won. I won because it was unconstitutional. You have a right to elect whoever you want to the legislature. You don't want a test to say this person can't run. Another time, every legislator has a nomination for a scholarship at Tulane University. You never heard about it. Well, the newspaper wanted to know who we were nominating. And I said, no, it's confidential. We went to Tulane. Tulane said, I don't have to divulge anything. You know how to divulge it. We went to court. Court ruled. You can't get it. Have to be killed because Tulane wasn't a public institution. It didn't have to disclose on who I recommended for a scholarship. This little thing like that, I've been an attorney for 40 years.
1 minute.
I had all that. I raised horses. I have a farm in the state. My wife loves the horse. I love my wife. We got no horses. But I love them now also. But it's important that the business is okay. But if you never own a racehorse, think 3 times before you own a racehorse. It's deep pockets. But I love my wife. Anyway, this time, George, I'd like to tell you more. I was in the military. When I joined the military, I went to boot camp. President Kennedy reactivated special forces. And I didn't volunteer for that. They just went to pick people up and put them in special forces. I enjoyed it. But I was discharged. I still look at what their basic theme is, and that is to help the oppressed. The oppressed did their good. And I still contact some of my old friends. But please, democracy is important. Your vote is important. Take that away from you, you got a problem. Don't ever let the majority not rule. Don't have the minority to rule, because then it's a problem. And I'll guarantee to you that I will make sure every result from every election is checked, and have to double check. But the integrity of our elections, I'm going to make. When I raise up my hand, like all the elected officials, are supposed to stay with that vote. That's just the way I am. Thank you very much for
All right, everybody. Well, that's it.
Thank
We're
you.
going to be running this out. Feel free to approach Morel if you have
Yeah.
questions. And thank you for coming.